I would like to continue my methodology explanations with the usage of iCamera, cinematographic theory, and using the cinematographic apparatus to locate the epistemological base, right? And what I mean about this is that think about the person I gave you as an example that said, what these people are saying is not correct. We already knew that they existed, right? What I tried to explain to them was that this is related to the angle of the camera. What you know and what they know, what you experience and what they experience is never going to be the same exact thing. It's not possible because the degree of closeness to the state's institutions or state's apparatuses, right? How you experience yourself within the religious institutions, the education institutions, the healthcare institutions, so on and so forth, or courts, right? It's very important, is going to be quite different. And because of those differences, how you understand what is it that you are looking for is going to be quite different in a given society. This is true for any society. So then the question comes when we are writing and when we are investigating as well, and also who we are investigating, where is the angle of the camera standing? Because think about it, right? Currently, when you're looking at my face in this video, when you're watching it, if I actually turn the angle of this camera, I'm at home right now, you are going to be seeing my living room because I'm looking at my living room. And then you are going to be thinking that this is the space that I'm looking at, but when I'm actually turning right or left, I'm actually seeing other rooms and other places as well, right? So then where the camera is positioned by the operator in this right now, this moment when you're looking at me, I am the operator, I'm holding the camera, right? And because I'm holding the camera in this case, right, when I'm writing, when I'm doing an investigation and I'm going to field to learn something, or when I'm writing the book, I am the operator as the field researcher. And this is very important for me to be knowing, consciously be aware of it, and you also to be aware of it as my reader or my listener right now. So then where we are looking at in the fieldwork, when I'm looking at the Syrian refugees, right, those are the people that I am investigating. And that is a spectrum. The interviewees and participants in that case that I did find within a temporal and spatial setting. The context is very important. That's why, for example, when I'm reading the papers or reviewing field researchers' works, I always say, what is the context? When did you do it? Sometimes people write, this is what people told me, this is what people responded to, this is all the questions I ask. Okay, but the important thing is that, where was this? When was this? Right? It's very important to time frame it. Look at the beginning of the video. What did I tell you? I said, when I interviewed Syrian refugees in Turkey, it was in Gaziantep. It was end of 2015, beginning and the first half of the 2016. And what was happening politically there was such and such. Now, without that kind of contextualizing, it's quite standing, I'm not going to say meaningless, but almost, right? So quite, but almost. But I'm going to say it's standing in the air, right? All those things that are told to you does not have very much meaning or can be construed as something out of its meaning, which is bias. Look at the bias video, don't forget it. And that would be problematic. So then contextualizing is very important. So we do really need to be understanding. And furthering the camera, you are not only the operator looking at the spectrum, me, the researcher, and looking at the interview participants and interviewees. But there is also going to be the spectator, which are the, in terms of research, the readers of the outcomes of this research, that the research output is going to be read by someone. And then there is going to be the spectator. When I'm doing this video, and when you are watching it, you are the spectator who has its own angles and its own camera, right? And then I do really need to be in conscious realization of it. I do always have it in my mind that there is going to be a spectator, because that's why, as a methodological point, note, if I may say that way, you do really need to always, wherever you're going to be, if you are not a researcher and if you are, let's say, a person who is going to hold a professional job, but you are sent to be talking with a group of people, the first question you need to be asking, you know what it is? You have to be asking, who is the audience? Who am I talking to? It's really important. Think about it. If you are going to be talking to other professionals who are in the equal position as you are, that's different. If you are going to talk to superiors and give them a suggestion about a certain job, it's different. If you are going to be talking to university students as your audience, it's different, right? If we're going to be talking to a neighborhood of people who live in a residential area, it's quite different. You can create the same speech for everyone. So that's your spectator. And then you don't really need to be in understanding of who you are writing. So then it's one of the really most important questions, whatever you are going to be writing, if you are listening to this, and if you are going to be writing a master's thesis or a PhD thesis or a book, right? You do really need to be asking yourself, who am I writing this for? I was asked this question when I was doing my doctorate work, right? Who are you writing for? It's a very important question, and that answer changes everything that you're going to be doing, how you are going to be handling it. Why am I telling you all of these and why this is a methodological tool for me? I am standing as the camera, I'm looking at one direction and when I'm in the field, right? So then my eye, right, is having an authorial power to say all of those things. So then I do really need to put that subjectivity out there, so then I can distance myself from bias. It sounds counterintuitive, but science often is counterintuitive. I'm using it as a tool in my writing, where the interview participants' narratives become the center stage. The position, I'm aware that, is going to be shifting in the eyes of the spectators. It's possible. The person who told me that, who are these people? Why are you talking to these kinds of people? That's why camera is very important. So then now, more than anything else, I actually learn a lot of things about the speaker, right? This person who tells me this, I learned their perspective, their positionality, how they see the other identities, and all of those things. Actually very important and very valuable information, right? So then you do have this power of deciding the angles of that. That's why in the book I say, when you're reading this book, right, there are different groups of people. I aimed to achieve that. And if, for example, you are reading an identity that is outside of who you define as the Syrian, oftentimes that's our community, you're not going to be, I'm not going to say like it, but you're going to be not finding yourself in it. And that's very natural. That's what science is for. I always tell people, even if you are born and raised in a place, if you didn't look at it with scientific methodic tools, you don't really know that community the way that you are going to be knowing it as a social researcher. Now, you are going to know it within the surrounding experiences with it, but that's always limited, right? Where you go in your country, who you interact with in your country, it's not everyone. And then the more further you are from different segments of that particular society, the less you think that they're part of it. But it's not that they're not part of it, but it's that you are not aware of the other kinds of existences within the same territory, right? Just really important thing for us to be understanding as researchers, and that's what we are trying to be, at least I am, finding that opportunity for different groups of people to see themselves and others within that border, if you may, and the border here can mean many different kinds of things, not only national borders, but let's say you call yourself a nationalist, but there are different kinds of nationalists, or you call yourself a feminist, and there are different kinds of feminists. What are the borders of that, and how do others experience themselves? You do really need to know, and the science is trying to tell you the different ways of being all of those things that are borders oftentimes, and there is a dominant hegemonic discourse holding parts of that identity, and you may be outside of that, but you still use the same name for yourself. I am a feminist, but many instances, the things people ask me, I'm not that kind of a feminist, right? But do I ever say, no, I'm not a feminist? No, I don't ever say. I'm actually saying that, okay, I'm aware through my readings and exposure and interactions with different types of existences of feminists in various places. And then I do understand the meanings attached to that, and I do see where I belong, where I don't belong, and the commonalities within that as well, of course. The reader in my writing needs to be aware that I am a camera. As I said, this can sometimes be backfiring to people saying, you are spreading lies. No, I'm not spreading lies. I'm actually telling you how other people are experiencing themselves. And it is not up to you or up to me to deny people their own experiences. If I'm giving importance to voices, this is my responsibility, right? Further responsibility to understand the community and different parts of the community. And that's how I'm actually going to become or produce better policymakers, because denial never produces good policies anyway. And that is part of the way Auguste Comte tells us. The role of the scientist is very important. You go, you look into the community, you collect the data, you interpret it, you give it back, and society interacts with this idea that you created, interpreted, and gave back to society. It changes and shifts with that findings and that theorizing. After that, the scientist goes back again and through those changes, looks at the practices, the experiences, the outcomes, and then creates yet again other kinds of theories, and then gives back that to society. And this is an endless cycle of learning of the society. But we do really need to first understand in that existing moment, wherever we are looking at, the truth, right? The multiple truths that exist in one community, rather than thinking that we can actually make them appear differently because this is what works for us. That's not the job of the scientist. So I hope this was somewhat a clarifying introduction to the book, but also additionally, it was beneficial for you to be thinking about some important methodological concepts. In the next one, we are going to continue with chapter 2, where I will talk about the context of Syria, how I handle the historical context. It's quite different than the mainstream context writing. And my theoretical framework, which includes conflict theories, because I come from conflict theory as a scholar, and the agency in multiple temporalities and spatiality, which I take from Emir Bayer and Misch understanding of agency. See you soon. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.